Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special Thursday night Insta Live here at Talking Away The Taboo. We have actually a really special episode for you. It is, we're really lucky because a new friend of mine, someone who I met when I was in Plainview, New York, as part of their Scholar in Residence program. We did an entire program all on fertility challenges. It was part of the Yesh Tikva Awareness Shabbat. I got to meet Tee, and Tee is she's a newbie to Instagram. She just joined a couple of days ago. And I am so excited to have her here because she has this tremendous story where she struggled with primary infertility for many years, and she's going to be here to tell us all about it. And I think interesting things. One of the most, here she is. One of
Sorry,
the most
hi.
interesting, you are great. One of the most interesting things about Tee is that she has been public about her fertility story for a long time, but this is the first time that she's sharing it with a wider audience as opposed to within her own circles, within her family and friends, and so on and so forth. So, hi, how are you?
Good, only for you, Amy.
Oh, please, come on. Well, now also for everyone
Yes.
else too. So, okay. So, first of all, just introduce yourself. Tell people who you are, where you grew up. Just like give us like the general overview, and then we'll get right into it.
Okay, so I'm Tee Simpser, or T Green Simpser, as most people know me. I grew up in Boston. My family moved to Baltimore when I was 10. So then I went to college when I was 16. So I don't really feel like I'm from anywhere. Now I'm from Plainview, Long Island, which is where my husband was born and raised. So I guess this is the most I'm from anywhere. I'm a teacher by trade, middle school and high school English. Right now I do corporate education, which I love. I love educating. I love being a voice for what's right, um, and doing things right. And that's kind of also why I'm interested in like doing stuff with you to use my voice to share my story this way.
Amazing. And I, I I'm so grateful that you've been a person who's been sharing for a long time. And so I guess like, my first question to you is, you know, when when we spoke initially, you told me that you knew from the time you were young, like you had some medical problems, like, and so you like, and talk to us a little bit about that, whatever you want to share again, and then sort of take us from that point to the place of where you met your husband, and then as you started thinking about building a family. So take us like backwards, and then like let's call it until 10 years ago ish, something like that. You
Okay,
take us on that journey.
so going way, way back to March of 2005, I was 12 and a half years old. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Um, I had like a terrible pediatrician who had let me go undiagnosed for months.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
like, yeah, kind of watched me like wither away, like just lose weight. Um, and like people were concerned about an eating disorder. It turns out, when your body is dying, you lose weight and things like that. So I was diagnosed with diabetes, and I went to Beis Yaakov of Baltimore, which is a really wonderful school and is not your typical Beis Yaakov, but there are some mentalities there that are more stereotypical mainstream yeshivish, like you don't share um, medical health problems, mental health problems, um, divorce, because there's stigma that comes with that. And even at the age of 12, you don't want to be ruining your shidduch, your marriage prospects.
Can
Um,
I stop you just for a second
sure.
and just explain to people who don't know what the Beis Yaakov system is, school system is, just give them a little bit of a window just so they understand. Like, yes, obviously, like don't talk about anything that's like anything,
Yeah.
but like what is the system?
So Beis Yaakov is a wonderful concept that was started by Sarah Schenirer, that is supposed to make sure that girls get a proper education, because often in more religious circles, regardless of the religion, girls' education is overlooked. That being said, this education is often, in the Beis Yaakov movement, it's still very, very right-wing Orthodox. Beis Yaakov of Baltimore is a little bit different because I think they view themselves as more of a community school. They accept girls from all different walks of life. The teachers, the principals, the general mentality of the school, though, is still very right wing. So regardless of like the makeup, like many of my friends, classmates that I graduated with, we consider ourselves modern Orthodox. Most of the teachers would not consider themselves modern Orthodox. They would consider themselves like yeshivish Orthodox. Our uniforms were, long skirts, button down blouses, buttoned up to here, rules about our nail polish, rules about our jewelry, knee socks, things like that. So it,
So really a like a much more cloistered system. Like for people
yes,
who don't know anything about this world, it's like there is the general Orthodox world, and then there's the world that's more religious, more to the right, and that's kind of the system that this Beis Yaakov was.
yeah. So although the girls themselves wouldn't didn't align so much with things like, oh, we have to think about our marriage prospects at 12. There were things that teachers said that, um, you know, I'll share that part later as we get back into the story, but that were definitely more to the right of where we considered ourselves.
So it was like, God forbid, don't tell anybody about your diabetes because that might hurt your ability to get married, like 10 years down the line or whatever it
Exactly.
is, which is like,
Exactly. 100%. Things like I also have a brother with autism. People were surprised that like I never, I don't know, hid him from anyone. Um, so yeah, so I was diagnosed with diabetes, and I was actually diagnosed, of course, right around the Jewish holiday of Purim, which is where we exchange, baskets of food with other people. And of course, when you're a kid, it's just like bags filled with candy and junk food. And of course, like God clearly has a plan that he is just laughing about up there. Like, that's exactly when you want to be diagnosed with, as people call it, like the sugar. So that's when I was diagnosed with diabetes. And, as soon as there's like drama in your life, you become the most popular kid in school and everybody wants to know your business. That is not unique to the Orthodox world, as I can say as a teacher who taught high school. And so people were calling, what's wrong with you? What happened? We heard you in the hospital. I was in the pediatric ICU. Then I got moved down. Then I came home. I was out of school for like a week. Um, and I said to my parents, I'm like, what do I tell people? And my mom's like, what do you want to tell people? And I'm like, I want to tell them I'm diabetic. I don't know. Like, I want them to know, like, I have blue eyes, I'm short, and I have type 1 diabetes. Like, it's just part of me. My mom's like, great, excellent. Then that's what you'll tell people. And that's the home that I grew up in. My parents are not the kind to hide things like this, and it was also, my mother viewed it as a safety thing. God forbid should I have an emergency, she wanted every adult in the building, as well as my friends, to know how to take care of me, to know how to keep me safe. Especially like gym teachers, things like that. So I always shared, and that from the get-go was a little bit different, not so much in my direct circles, but in the community that my parents live in, that was definitely different. And I remember when I came back to school that first day, so many of my teachers were like so sweet and so kind. And, if you ever need to eat, if you ever need to leave the room, like do whatever you need to do. And one teacher said to me, this is a kapara for something, and a kapara is like an atonement. And there's a concept in Judaism that, even if you're not a bad person, if you get a punishment, it like cleanses your soul somehow, right? So, we're coming up on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, cleansing the soul. And I just remember thinking, like, at 12 years old, a girl becomes obligated in following Jewish law. I've been 12 for 6 months. Like, how many times could I have screwed up? Like
Wow.
for this to be my punishment. And 24 hours before I was diagnosed, my 20-month-old brother was diagnosed as well. So when she said that, I'm just kind of like, wow, I must have done something like really terrible to deserve this. And I remember telling my parents, and they're like, please ignore anyone who ever talks to you like that. And again, that also kind of became my mentality, and it carried me through a lot of my infertility as well. The comments that people said, my parents were always my dumping ground, my venting ground for just like every nasty thing that people said. And my dad is usually very careful about like no bad speech. You shouldn't talk poorly about people. This has always been like his one exception. Like I can just vent him about the dumb things people say, and they're just kind of like, yeah, that was a really stupid thing of someone to say to you. Like don't listen to them. So that was like, I mean, almost 20 years ago. That was like my formative, like, welcome to having a diagnosis that people don't like to talk about and people say stupid things about. And that meant those mentalities have kind of just carried me through.
I love that. And you know, there's so many people in the comments who are saying like, I'm so happy your parents were intelligent and supportive.
Yeah,
Your parents
me
are
too.
amazing. Like I just like this like and just the like incredulousness of like, oh my God, I can't believe someone would say such crazy things to a 12-year-old.
Yeah,
Like
and that was
it's
definitely the
absurd.
minority. Yeah, that was like,
I
yeah, a little bit mind blowing, but thankfully the minority. And thankfully I've also always had an amazing group of friends, like the girls that I graduated with who are now women. We have like a WhatsApp group for our class, and they've also
wow,
been like so incredibly supportive from the time, I mean, when I was diagnosed. People came to like visit me in the hospital, check in on me, and I shared with them my infertility story, and they've always been beyond supportive. So
incredible, incredible. Okay, so now like I mean you're hinting at it. I mean obviously you're here.
yes.
We talk about we talk about fertility stuff, not diabetes. So
Yes.
yes. So continue on. Continue on.
So then, graduated high school, went to college. I got involved in NCSY my sophomore year of college at Turo.
Which is
I went to
which is a youth group.
Yeah. And I always was like, oh, I'm never gonna date any guy that I meet in NCSY. Like that's not my plan. I want to be like focused on the teenagers, who I was also a teenager at the time, but I'm gonna be focused on the teenagers, helping them enjoy Judaism. Like that's pretty much what NCSY is for. Like you guys are Jewish and enjoy it and learn about it. And I met my husband on Canada. The Canadians came to New York, and I asked all the local, all the college kids in New York who were involved in other regions to come and help out. So I did mainly New York and Atlantic Seaboard, which is like Baltimore, Philadelphia. My husband did New England, so we had never met before. And we met, we got assigned to do like some holy duties together. We got to talking. That was Friday night. He asked me out Sunday, and my marriage came very easily to me. Like thank God, everyone struggles somehow and everyone has easy stuff. There's somehow a balance, hopefully. So that was like very very easy for me. I got married to my husband when I was 20. He was 23. um just like the only person that I could do this with. And I knew from the time I was, when I was diagnosed with diabetes, the endocrinologist in the hospital was just terrible. And she came to me and she said, have you gotten your period yet? Have you started getting your period? And I said, no. And she said, well, you should just know that it's likely you'll need to have C-sections. And I was like, okay, it's something to file in the back of my mind, like I'm 12 years old, sure. And then, so I had, it was something that always sat in the back of my mind, like I'm probably not going to have a million kids because it's going to be difficult, to have the kids, because diabetics are known to have larger babies, higher risk pregnancies. So it was something that I had discussed with my husband when we were dating, in addition to like matching our genetic testing and things like that, making sure we were compatible. And it was never, a deal breaker for him, nothing crazy. And we started he was in grad school getting his MBA. I was in grad school getting my MST, my master's in teaching. And um, when I was like a year out from graduating, I was like, okay, like now's a good time to start like start trying. I figured I could hunker down while doing my thesis, things like that. Um, and life had other plans. That was in 2016, I want to say. And, and our son was born in 2021. Um, so clearly things didn't go as we planned. You think you have a great plan. I had everything planned out. I was like, okay, the beginning of my pregnancy, I'm going to do my student teaching and I'll be fine. The end of my pregnancy, I'll probably be on some kind of bed rest. I'll do my thesis. Like, wonderful. Everything is planned. No, this was things did not go as I had planned, even though I thought I had planned so well. Um, but
I,
yeah,
I, I I was going to say, as with all things in life, right? We can plan, and it's clear that there are other plans in store for
yeah.
us. Um, so talk to me about those years. What were they like?
So we started trying, and we're both young. Nobody's very concerned the first few months that we try and nothing happens. And I happened to have like a regular OBGYN appointment, and I mentioned to her, we've been trying and like my periods have never been regular. Should I be concerned? I know they say don't be concerned until a year if you're young and this and that. And she's like, you want me to run some blood work? I'll run some blood work. That's fine. Um, and it turns out I have PCOS. So we started off with, very basic oral medications, Clomid, things like that, like letrozole. Nothing worked, nothing happened, month after month after month. Um, we went to two doctors in Connecticut, and then we moved to Long Island, two fertility specialists in Connecticut. We moved to Long Island. We went to one that everybody recommended. He got a little bit more aggressive with the fertility treatments. Um, and the one when you have comorbidities, multiple medical problems, it always makes things more complicated. Even if you're just going to the doctor for a sore foot, it's always like, is it your diabetes? Are you having diabetic neuropathy? It's never just like, no, I stubbed my toe and broke my nail. So like that comorbidities, it always makes things complicated. So I have um, some heart problems as well, plus the diabetes. My doctor was very, very nervous for me to get pregnant with multiples. So while he's trying to be more aggressive, he's also very nervous that if I got pregnant with multiples, he would highly recommend reducing the pregnancy,
Wow.
which for me is heartbreaking. For those of your listeners who don't know about reducing, it's basically aborting all but one of the babies in my case, to give the baby and myself a higher chance, which nobody was a fan of. I honestly didn't even ask my rabbi, like, what would the deal be with that? Because um, we just kind of like, we're trying to avoid that in general. Um,
So
and
to be clear, like it wasn't that you were pregnant and he was suggesting this. He was just saying this theoretically. Like,
yeah,
by the way, like I don't want to give you any medicine that's going to stimulate you too much because I'm worried that if you end up getting pregnant with more than one, that we're going to have to
exactly.
reduce.
So we were very fortunate. We got all of our news very early. Like I have friends who had unexplained infertility and tried for years before they got any kinds of answers, things like that. My husband, Shlomo and I were very fortunate. Like, I mean, I got my PCOS diagnosis relatively early in our trying. Um, our doctors had answers for everything. It was very clear I had PCOS. It was very clear that it would be very problematic for me to get pregnant with multiples. So things like IUI, um, my fertility specialist was very hesitant to try, and they wanted me to steer more towards IVF because that's more controlled. Of course, like one embryo, if it takes, it can split. Chances are lower than if we straight up just went to IUI or kept you know taking oral medications and being more aggressive with that. So um, during all of that, we moved to Plainview. We started making friends here. And I got a lot of support from people who shared, my kids were born from IVF. Oh, I used this specialist. My kids were IUI. Oh, we also had to wait years to have kids, things like that. And I felt very, very supported by that. But as the years went on, I just was kind of like, okay, but where's my people? Where's my crew? The people who don't have the, here's my beautiful kids who were born from IVF. Like, where's the people who are like, yeah, this sucks. We may never be parents. And as much as, and I know I have some of those friends watching now, as much as I felt less alone, I still felt like nobody gets me now. And the truth is now, thank God, as someone who has two healthy miracle babies, spoiler alert, sorry, um, you actually, I saw it in one of your stories earlier today that you're able to talk so openly about your journey because you can dip your toe in and then step out when you need to. Um, and I also thankfully have that perspective now where it's painful. And sometimes when I talk about it, and we get near like Yontif times, I'm like very sad again. But then guess what? I go hug my kids and I remind myself that I went through all of that and I came out and I'm okay. But in that time of my life, like those years, I'm like, where are my people? Where are the people who get me right now where I am? And I didn't really have those people. I had a friend who was also going through infertility. Thank God she got pregnant via IUI. And then I felt like I had someone and now I don't anymore. Um, but I was very thankful to live in a community where people were open about it because it meant that I felt more comfortable being open about it. And just like I've been open about everything else in my life, I took to my Facebook and started posting about it, um, sharing with people. um my family always knew, like my parents and my siblings. I started sharing more with my siblings-in-law, my in-laws. My sister-in-law, one of my sisters-in-law is a fertility specialist. So I just started being more open about things. And then I had a really bad reaction to one of the fertility medications that my doctor was trying. He's like, let's try something new. And again, comorbidities. It raised my blood sugar. I couldn't get it back down.
Oh,
I guess
wow.
the medicine took a while to like be in my system. I ended up getting horrible vertigo, which gave me a panic disorder, which I still have. Because I still have the vertigo. Vertigo doesn't go away. It gets managed, thank God. But I ended up almost dying
Oh my
um,
gosh.
in March, April of 2019. Um, I spent a week in the ICU. I remember like being conscious and asking the doctor, like, why am I still in the ICU? He's like, just because you're awake doesn't mean you can't die. And I'm like, okay, honesty 10, 10 out of 10, bedside
Oh
manner,
God.
probably a 0.
Oh God.
But yeah, and my poor husband slept on a folding chair for a week. Um the only time he left was when my parents and my sister came, and like my mom was like, shower, go home, eat like real food. um it was really bad. I don't want to go into all the details of that, but I was in and out of consciousness. It was like physically so painful. And so my husband said, we have to stop. Like, I don't know if we have to stop permanently, but this is not okay. Like, even now he's more traumatized than I am, probably because he was awake for all of it and I was not. But like he had to call my mom and like tell her that I was in critical condition in the hospital. um it was terrible for him, and he was the first one who said like, let's look into adoption. And it took me a year of hardcore physical therapy, vestibular therapy, to get back to myself. I had to learn how to drive again, how to walk again, how to eat again. Anything that irritated my inner ear, I had to learn how to do it again. Um, so, talking, throughout, like I had to do an hour of physical therapy every day. My best friend, who's been my best friend since ninth grade, Yehudit, she would send me voice notes, like at like half-hour long voice notes that I could just listen to while I did this physical therapy. And I couldn't respond because I couldn't even like talk. So like that kept me going. I'm truly blessed to have like a really good like friends, family, like people who keep me going through this. But honestly, like my husband is probably the only one who knew the extent of everything. So we started looking into adoption, and a lot of people, I just want to take this opportunity to say, a lot of people, when you tell them you're having a hard time having children, I had people tell me, foster, just adopt, get a dog.
Oh God.
And I think that a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to adopt. I know, back in like the 80s, 90s, people would fly to other countries, come back with babies. I mean, even that I'm oversimplifying, but it's very complicated. It's very time consuming. It's very expensive. Um, it, it's not just, oh, adopt. And, with fostering,
Just
yeah,
adopt.
just that's a lot of things are just adopt, just foster. And I'm like, the goal of foster care is to reunite the child with their family of origin. And emotionally, I couldn't do that. Just get a dog. I mean, I'm allergic to dogs, but also like, sorry, like not, no, that's just not, thanks but no thanks. So we looked into that, and we got the most ridiculous phone calls from this adoption agency. We got phone calls. There was a 16-year-old girl who wanted to live in our home while we adopted her infant son. So I'm like, oh, at like 27, you want me to be a grandma? Like
Oh
this
my gosh.
this is like, and these were the phone calls that we got, and it was so disheartening, and it was so depressing. Um, and then in the summer of 2020, my husband and I were like, we can't do this anymore. We're spending our entire life, our entire marriage, using all of our money, our resources, our time, our energy, um, on just waiting for phone calls. Like before this, we were just going to doctor's appointments. Like we want to enjoy our life. And so we said, look, let's do one last try. And if it doesn't happen, then all that money that we're hoarding, and I mean, we're talking like almost $100,000 that we had to keep in reserve in case we got a phone call for a baby that was born right then. Um, and we're
For
like, we'll go.
for
Yeah,
adoption. I just want that to be clear.
yeah, for
Yeah.
adoption. Um, and this was after like fertility treatment payments and everything like that. And we're like, we'll go on cruises, we'll travel the world, like we'll live our best lives, and we'll be sad that we don't have kids. And that'll sting. But I mean, we still have each other. Like we still have each other. And as anyone who goes through infertility, I'm sure has experienced, it's tough on the couple. Um, it's emotionally difficult. You feel like you're in two different worlds. Like my husband was watching me do everything, and I was watching me not be able to give him a child because we did all the testing. There's no male factor infertility. Um, and it's just, while we were doing it together, like we were going through the experience together, our experiences were so different that there were a lot of times that it didn't feel together. And so much of your life is I mean, your sex life is regulated by a fertility specialist. It's not how a young couple should be spending, their like young years, or I mean any couple. But it's tough. And so we said, okay, one last shot. And my sister-in-law Michal, um, Dr. Michelle Goldsamler, as the infertility world knows her. Um, to my kids, she's just Tanta Mimi. She recommended um, a fertility specialist that she knew who did different kinds of IVF. He took different risks. He tried different methods. He didn't do mainstream IVF. And what he actually suggested for me when he sat down and talked to me, his name is Dr. Merhi, he suggested mini IVF, which is a lot more monitoring, a lot, daily blood tests and ultrasounds and things like that. But you take less hormones because you're being monitored so closely. You take exactly what you need and no more. Um, because I was very worried about ending up in the ICU again and everything like that. So we did our mini IVF. Our first round, they got 25 follicles,
Wow.
um, which ended up, blastocysts, everything, five embryos, um, four boys, one girl. Two of the boys and the girl were healthy, and that was the Friday before Selichot started. We did my egg retrieval, and Columbus Day was the implantation. They did genetic testing and everything. um, Columbus Day was the implantation, where they put the embryo inside, and we just hope and pray that it sticks and stays. And June 2nd, our first child was born, thank God. Um, and I thought that was it. I thought like our hard years are over, but all throughout those years, we got so many comments and so many questions and so many things that just shouldn't have been said to us, when all we needed was just love and hugs and just those texts that I sent to my friends, just checking in. Don't ask if it was a successful cycle, because if it was, you'll know. And if it wasn't, I'll tell you when I'm ready. Um, but infertility is so hard without all the unsolicited advice. um that yeah, it was a tough, I'm like thinking about it now, I'm like, how did we get through all of that? How did I never punch anybody in the face? Like, how did I'm amazed at my own patience over here.
Can okay, so this, your first son was, your first child was transferred around right before Rosh Hashanah time, and you ended up having him in June. Um, you also, when you and I were, I know there's more to the story and we're going to get to it, but when you and I spoke prior to this, you spoke about how this time of year, Rosh Hashanah time, is very meaningful, but also is very triggering for you. Can you share a little bit more about that?
So I know that there are so many women like me who are gearing up for yet another Rosh Hashanah. Jewish high holidays, we spend the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, the one day of Yom Kippur, in shul, praying and praying and praying. We pray for a good year and we pray for this. And, you know, you gear up for your fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh Rosh Hashanah, where you're praying to God, please give me a child. Just please, adoption, biological. I don't even care anymore. Just please, something like just a baby. Is it so hard? Like, I've been a pretty decent person this year, and um, it's emotionally exhausting. You're jaded. You're sick of it. I have friends who are just like, I'm sitting it out this year. I can't keep feeling like I'm talking to a wall and like I'm pouring my heart out and God isn't listening. And I've always connected very, very strongly with prayer. That's like a very strong thing for me. And when my husband's grandmothers were still alive, they both passed away within the past bunch of years, but I used to sit in between them in shul, and they both actually dealt with their own infertility issues. My husband's paternal grandmother had a lot of losses, late term losses, struggles to maintain a pregnancy, and his maternal grandmother, like me, struggled to get pregnant in the first place. Um, and I was sitting next to her, and they were reading from the Torah, reading the Haftorah for Rosh Hashanah, and they're reading about Chana. And um
Hannah is Hannah. And
yes.
tell people the story of Hannah, just for
So
people who are not familiar with it.
she's the mother of Shmuel Hanavi, Samuel the prophet, and it introduces her to us, very beginning of the book of Samuel, and it talks about how she and her husband's other wife would go up, to be by the Mishkan. Like before we had the temple, there was like a temporary type of place to worship, for the big holidays, and every time they would go up, um, you know, all of the other wives' kids would get their food, and her husband would give her, the best food, but she was still sad because, it actually says in one verse, she was childless, and then a few verses later it said God had sealed her womb. And I always found that interesting. Like, sometimes I feel alone, that like, oh, I don't have, like, I would feel like, oh, I don't have kids, and then I'd be like, wait, God is the reason I don't have kids. Like, I didn't do anything. I didn't ask for this. Like, and that's also a very lonely feeling when you feel like even God doesn't have your back. If you're a religious person and you grew up with God, God does this and God does that, and it's tough to be like, what did I do wrong, God? And I felt like back to that 12-and-a-half-year-old kid who's like, seriously, God? Like, what's up with this? It's like, um, and my husband's grandmother pointed to a verse where, um, Hannah's husband says to her something like, "Am I not like enough for you?" Like, basically like, I'm here, I love you. Everyone knows you're the loved, you're the number one wife. And the other wife, her name is Penina. She, the verse tells us that she would torture and taunt Hannah, and you know there's actually a word in the verse that says gam. Also, she also tortured her, which, signifies to us that this was, a regular occurrence where she's constantly, I have kids and you don't, and different rabbinic interpretations say, like, she was actually, a very righteous woman, this other wife, Penina, and she did this to encourage Hannah to pray harder. Like, I'm going to make you more miserable, so maybe you'll pray harder. And ultimately, we know that despite her good intentions, Penina did get punished ultimately, which is not a punishment I would ever wish on anyone. She ended up losing some of her children. But to me, that signified like God still saw Hannah's pain. Like, here Penina is, and she's saying these things, and like Hannah's being tortured. Like, she's saying these horrific things to her, and the truth is, like, her husband doesn't get it because her husband is not childless. And like, yes, my husband does not have another wife. Like, he doesn't have other kids. He is going through this with me, but, and people phrase it this way, I was the reason he didn't have kids. I was the problem. I was the unhealthy one. Um, and that hurt me so badly, especially because we live in the community that he grew up in. He was born here and raised here. And people would say, like, oh, I know he's going to be such a good father. Don't you want him to be a father? And I'm like, do you think I'm like purposely not? And I remember just sitting there with my husband's grandmother, and both of us kind of thinking about our own pain, um, in dealing with this. And it's kind of ironic. My son's name is Sam. It's not Samuel, it's just Sam, but my middle name is Hannah. So I just kind of felt like a relationship to that as well. But I remember just sitting there being like, Hannah's in so much pain. She actually goes and prays so hard and so quietly to herself that the high priest thinks she's like drunk and she's nuts. And she was actually the first person to pray that we know who prayed in this way, like this quiet, intense, one-on-one prayer with God, not like a communal type of prayer out loud. And like, that kind of reminded me, like, I still have this relationship with God. Whatever all these other people are saying to me, and like, God sees this hurt and God knows that the hurt. I'm like, rarely did people say anything with malicious intentions, but it hurts anyway. I mean,
Always.
it hurts anyway. It hurts. Why don't you have kids? I mean, even after we had our son, when is he gonna have a, oh, you
Oh,
don't want to be have an only child? And I mean, the end of the story is I went off of birth control when my son was 9, 10 months old because I can't have kids, right? Like I can't. This is what all the specialists tell me. And my daughter Emmy is going to be 2 in January. And even now, you'd think it would end, right? I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl. My secular friends, my non-Jewish friends are all like, oh, okay, so you're done, right? Like you have the perfect little family, like that's fine, right? From the Jewish world, there's something that's just, oh, but you're like only 32. You're like, you're done? Why would you be done? And I still get like that painful, that hurt of like just the comments still coming. And someone said to me recently, like, oh, so you really didn't have infertility because you had Emmy without any
oh
medical intervention. And I'm like,
God.
please, please let me know when you get your medical degree because this conversation is not working for me at all. Um, but like like I heard you say, I can talk about it with much less pain now because I have my 2 babies, but I remember just seeing people's Facebook posts and finding out about their infertility, even people I was somewhat close with, finding out about their infertility with those beautiful like newborn photos where the baby's like surrounded by syringes and like this is their IVF miracle baby. And I just needed people to feel me now. I may not have a happy ending. I mean, thank God I do, but in that point in my life, I did not know. And like I just related to like Hannah just pouring her heart out to God and being like, why? Like why am I having so much pain? And then like after her pain is over and she's going to have her son, that's when she's out loud to God and like she sings on it. We have this whole song, like Hannah's song, and it's like a famous part of the Book of Samuel, and kids memorize it and learn it to the tune of a song, and it's just kind of like, um, yes, that's when it's easy to be out loud and share your story when you say, we went through our years of infertility and now we have our baby and we're so grateful to God, but I wish, I wish, and I hope that there are people listening to this who like may get some kind of like zing to feel like it's okay to talk about it now when it's the worst time in your life, when it's like so dark and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, I'm sorry, it's doctor's appointment after doctor's appointment of no, 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 and scans and this and that, and cry, so much crying and so much anger at other people, at God, at just yourself, your own body. Um, and like, it's okay to talk about it now. You don't have to wait for your miracle babies. You don't have to wait for your happy ending um, to get the support that you need. And I mean, I when I first heard about I was supposed to have a baby, a friend of mine who had recurrent losses shared the group with me. She said, "I think you'd really like this." And I said, "But it sounds like it's for people who had loss. Like I was supposed to have a baby, I was carrying one and I lost it." And she's like, "But T, don't you ever feel like I was supposed to have a baby?" And I'm like, every birthday my husband had when he hit 30, yeah, we thought, we got married when I was 20 years old. Like, I thought we would have a baby by now. Like, I was supposed to have a baby by now. I am doing all the medicines and all the different things and all the Jewish ritual mikvah right. Why do I not have a baby? So, I just felt like, wow, here's this person all the way back in, biblical times who even then experienced unwanted comments and unsolicited advice and feeling that disconnect from her husband and that pain and that resentment kind of towards God. And it really resonated with me. And that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Um, T, as you can see with all of the hearts that are floating up the screen and the different comments, Um, you are a remarkable, tremendous human being for, okay, yes, you have your happy ending now. And yes, I didn't, you and I did not connect in 2016, 2017, 18. However, it is clear that because of who you are and everything that you've been through, you have been able to, with with obviously lots of pain and suffering and difficulty, but you have been able to get through these pieces because of who you are and what your parents gave you, this like tremendous resilience of like, okay, that was a stupid comment, like we can laugh about that, that was ridiculous, and like you don't have to hide, and we don't have to present this perfect image to the world. We can show people that we're in pain, we can tell people that we're suffering, because how else are we going to get support? Like, why do people have to do it alone?
Yeah. And I did have people reach out to me after I started sharing. People started sharing with me that like they were in the same boat as me, but they don't want to talk about it. And I so get that. And I'm not saying that my openness is for everyone. I mean, even my husband, he's a much more private person than I am. So like I asked him before I did this, I'm like, you good with this? Like, are you comfortable with this? Like, it's your story too. Not everyone, and he is, but not everyone is ready for that. And I'm also lucky, I'm blessed that I have like a good group of friends, a good support team that was like, I mean, all the way, just like always, like people are saying dumb things to me. Like I text my sister, even now I text my sister, she's like, yeah, that's a dumb thing to say. And like she'll send me like an image of some, like a funny picture or something like that, or like a funny t-shirt. um and like I don't know that I could be myself without knowing that people will love me regardless of what I say and what I do. And some of the things that I say like offend people, like that, that I'm out about it.
Like what could you possibly say that offends
So some
people?
people say that like it's immodest that I say, my son was IVF and my daughter was a spontaneous like conceived spontaneously. That's inappropriate. Just different things like that like it's not something to be open about. But I also like I'll post when I'm like upset about God, and that does upset some people, but I think most
Because
people,
why? I'm pushing you a little bit. Because why? Why? What do they say to you when you say, I'm upset at God right now? I'm angry. What do they say?
um God has a plan.
Oh,
And I would
oh,
respond like, I wish you
oh.
flew me in on that plan because I'm not okay with this plan. My sister's saying I love you because of how offensive you are. um but I started having to be. I had someone tell me, I hope this is okay for your audience, I had someone ask me in synagogue when I was visiting my parents. They said, why don't you have kids yet? And I said, oh, we actually just found out we've been having sex wrong, but we're on it, don't worry, there should be a baby coming soon. And she said to me, she's like, what an inappropriate thing to say. And I said, it's not more inappropriate than what you just said to me.
Totally.
um, and I had just lost it. Like it was during those holidays. It was over Sukkot, which is like a lot of family time. There's Simchat Torah, very kid oriented, and my heart was just in so many pieces because we had done everything. I had brought my husband, that special like honor where all the kids go up,
Yep.
and he's there under the tallis, and I'm like, this year, and then, oh hey, 1 year later, still nothing. And I just my heart was so completely broken, and I was watching my friends' husbands dance with their kids, and they got married 5-6 years after me, and they had kids, like they had toddlers, and I couldn't anymore. So like I usually try to keep myself a little bit more in line. Guys, don't argue with me in the comments. I try to keep myself a little more in line than that, but just things come out. Like, I'm sorry. It's completely inappropriate to ask someone why they don't have more like kids. Even now, people ask why I say I'm done having kids, and my pregnancies have caused my kidneys to decline. And I had very, very, very complicated pregnancies, bed rest, just a mess. Both of my kids were C-sections, first an emergency, second one planned, but I'm now on medicine like preventative for kidney failure, which is also another issue because I'm diabetic. I'm already at high risk for this. And I'm like, I'd rather my kids have, just each other, the two of them, and I'm here and around for it than like risk myself and to give them another sibling. But I don't
100%.
think that should even be a question in the first place. So you'd think, now I have my kids, still getting the questions, still getting the
Right.
comments. Um, so
Wow.
I love being able to use my voice to help people who may feel like they can't use theirs yet. Or who maybe don't even know that, like, they haven't been exposed to enough people like me who just say whatever they need to say. We exist. We're here. We're open to supporting you, and I just wish everybody knew that.
Oh gosh. I'm like I have chills as we're having this conversation because I mean, look, the entire premise of this work, right, is talking about the unspeakable.
Right.
I mean, the name of our podcast is Talking Away the
Yeah.
Taboo
Yeah.
because we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
We have to do it because we have to make people feel less alone. Like what I always say is I cannot tell you because I can't predict the future. Like, I cannot tell you if and when you'll ever have a baby. That I can't do. What I can do is I can help you feel less alone on this
Yeah.
journey, wherever you land, whatever the end result is.
Yeah.
I can help hold you with this community that we can do this in the meantime. You don't have to do this by yourself.
Right. And it may be easier for people like you and I who have our kids now to help break down
Totally.
those stigmas, because like stigma's all about not being able to talk about painful topics, not being able to talk about being different. And like we can help do that even though we're not, in the not yet mom group anymore. Like I can still help make things better for people who are still in that group by making it more common and okay and comfortable for people to talk about. um so even though, like I do want to do that and I try to do that, and I hope that this helps with that. That's one of like the only reasons I agreed to do
It,
this.
it I can tell you definitively, even though, yes, obviously your fan club is here and all the people, but you can see people in the comments here who are already saying like, thank you. Yes, yes, and yes. So I'm I'm gonna close by asking you to just, look, this entire, last 50 minutes, whatever it is, has been all filled with words of strength and chizuk for people who are dealing with this now or may have dealt with it in the past and are still holding pieces of that pain and grief inside. But if you could speak directly to them, to the you of 2016, what would you say to that person, those people, to you?
Feel your feelings. um it's okay to not be okay with praying. It's okay to feel alone. It's okay to be angry at God. Don't keep it all in. Have your feelings. Tell people you have those feelings. Let them support you, because once I opened up about my struggles, my immediate circle just rushed to support me. Figurative hugs, literal hugs. Um And a lot of my loneliness came from me feeling like I couldn't share and like I couldn't have my feelings, like they weren't okay. And yes, that outer circle is going to say and do things, but tell the people you need to tell. Tell the people that you know will have your back, because you are going to need them. Regardless of the outcome, if you have a baby, thank God you're going to need help. And if it takes you a while to get there, if it never happens, you're going to need their help. So find your people right now.
I love that. I love that. It's true. It's true for this world and it's true for any kind of struggle. We need people. We are, there is, what does it say in Bereshit in the beginning of the book of Genesis? Like, man is not meant to be alone. I mean, okay, yes, I think, obviously that reference was in terms of people getting married, but it also very much applies to life in general. Life
100.
is not all roses and rainbows. There are so many pieces that so many of us go through, and we need each other to be able to get through it.
Yeah.
T, thank you so, so much. You are a newbie to Instagram. So,
Completely.
so you, first of all, you were amazing and you
Thank
did
you.
everything amazingly beautiful here. And definitely people can reach out to you on Instagram now that we've brought you to the dark side and you're
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Um, but we will also this conversation will also it'll be right here on Instagram on the I was supposed to have a baby handle right here, and it will also be up on our podcast probably right after Rosh Hashanah and that week between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Um, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you for everything that you do, for everything that you share, and may you just have a sweet, happy, and healthy year for you and your whole family.
Amen. You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Good night, everybody.